So guys, let's talk about testosterone in women. This is the crazy popular social media content at the moment. It's all over the web and everyone's on board with this. So what do we know about testosterone? We know that for women, it's approved in hypoactive sexual desire disorder. What does that mean? Loss of libido. It means we no longer enjoy sex, have a drive for it as much, and that's the one thing that the TGA and a lot of the drug companies have approved testosterone replacement for women. But what I think is more interesting is the brain connection and a lot of the evolving research coming out presently. So there's some new studies coming out that are really looking at testosterone replacement in women actually improves mental clarity, motivation, muscle mass. It also helps with bone density along with estrogen and mood depressive symptoms. So there's some critical studies that have come out recently. There was one 2014 by Davis et al., and this really looked at testosterone improving verbal learning and memory. So this broke it down into looking at testosterone as a driver of dopamine and really supporting reward signaling, whole like memory recall, retention of learning that improves with testosterone replacement in women. Not one that's heavily talked about on social media, but one that I find personally very interesting. You know, we talk about brain fog and the loss of mental clarity, and testosterone may actually be a big key player in this. So a British study in 2025 also has found that looking at women who were actually diagnosed in the perimenopause, postmenopausal period of having depression, anxiety, it may actually be related to the loss of hormones. So our ovaries make all of these hormones. They make testosterone, they make estrogen, progesterone, all of these decline. You know, the part that I find really interesting about this is the conversation now is at least evolved into addressing estrogen and progesterone, but a lot of women don't get the conversation around testosterone. You walk into your doctor's office, you say you may be concerned about perimenopause, you get a slew of the normal blood tests, and your results come back that you're normal. So what is normal? Normal for what? So I really want you to think about, there's different levels of testing for hormones. There's the symptom-based things, because estrogen, as you test for it day by day, can fluctuate. And testosterone stays a little more consistent, but it depends on where you get at what time of the month you get your blood tests as to whether that's normal or not. But you really have to evaluate symptoms. And what we really aim for in the optimization longevity world is we have different parameters. There's population-based data that's normal, but then there's also optimization levels. And that comes to a whole new level playing field where we're really trying to tighten control and find the optimal for each individual person. Another really good study that I find really interesting, Wang et al. Is the name of the paper, but it looks at a dose-related response of testosterone. So applying different levels of testosterone to your skin, monitoring the outcome and the benefit, and really tying that into muscle mass and preservation. So why do I love this? I love this because, as we know, muscle mass is one of the key pillars of longevity. This is the game changer for planning for our future health, planning for our marginal decades at 70 and 80, and we really need to maintain that muscle mass. So you see it on social media, everyone's going to the gym, doing high intensity workouts, lifting heavy weights, talking about testosterone, but you really need to pair this all together. You need to see what your levels are. You would also need to see what your micronutrients are, because you can throw all the hormones you want into somebody, but if they don't have proper calcium, vitamin D, magnesium, it's not gonna make a difference. They're not gonna build bone density. So you need to look at the whole optimization picture. You need to get a good level of where you are today. You need to get a DEXA scan, see what your bone density and your muscle mass is like. But then once you pair that with really optimizing all the hormones, including testosterone, this becomes extremely valuable. Is testosterone for every woman? No, it's not. And what we need to find is the right testosterone for the right woman for the right symptoms. So don't jump on the bandwagon and say, yes, testosterone is the miracle cure, it's going to make everything better. and that's what it's kind of starting to sound like in social media, it does help improve a lot of things. I feel better. I use testosterone. It's fabulous. But you really need to make sure you have all those other pieces in play for it to work properly. These are the myth busters going around on social media that I really like to address. Testosterone is a male hormone. No, it's not. It's a human hormone. We all make this, and it's important for everybody. If I take testosterone, I'm going to become masculine. I'm going to get facial hair and acne. I'm going to get huge muscles. You know, that would be really impressive if that were true. It would take a lot of super physiological levels of testosterone to achieve that, so good luck. Low libido is the only reason to take testosterone. So I hope I've given you a little clarity that there's a lot more stuff coming down the turnpike. Testosterone may be the newest studied neurosteroid, okay? So it's helping brain, memory, cognitive function, maybe helping your mood, maybe even helping alleviate that newly diagnosed ADHD that you suddenly developed at 50. Myth number 4, it's just aging, and we need to toughen up and deal with it. Isn't this the story of women's life? We're told that we need to have natural childbirth without an epidural, that we need to just sweat it out in menopause and deal with it and be tough. But feeling flat in our 40s and 50s is not something you have to accept. It's a choice, and it is definitely fixable. So, testosterone. We can never view this in isolation. It needs to be looked at with all the other hormones. It needs to be look at your symptoms. What are you hoping to achieve? What are you feeling? What do you really feel like would make your life better? And how is that going to get you to the end of your life? How are you going to be that healthy grandma dancing with your kids at weddings rather than the stooped over little old lady with your four-wheelie walker? You need to look at the whole picture. You need to get all of your biomarkers checked. You need to make sure all your micronutrients are good, your lipids are good, and you need to really do the deep dive. Today, you need to get your DEXA scan. You need to see what your lean muscle mass is. You need to see where your bone density is at and work forward. So testosterone, estrogen, they're a piece of the whole picture, and you got to address the whole thing to be optimized.